What's up, everybody? This is Encore, and this is your daily reminder that tomorrow never comes. Meaning, let's not put off things that we want to do tomorrow or some unknown day in the future. Let's do it today. Nothing is guaranteed. So let's get off our asses and let's get this going. So, for me in this channel, what that means is let's not wait on educating ourselves on the crypto space. It's here to stay, it's here to grow and prosper. And so it's a responsibility to yourself to educate. You don't have to jump in, but you need to educate and then make your decision, right? Informed decisions, that's what it's all about. So what I want to do today is I want to talk about stable coins, okay? And the interest that you can earn on these stable coins. What's so appealing, and at the same time, the flip side to that, what is so what turns people off of crypto is the same thing that turns some people on, which is massive gains. We're talking about 1,000x, 100,000x, 500,000x, 500x. Those types of gains, which are really, really exciting for the average person, is great. But for someone who is maybe a savvy investor or is is more conservative or has invested in other assets before, when they say something sounds too good to be true, it usually is, right? That's how everybody thinks. So when you hear that, like, yeah, okay, that's a bubble, that's gonna pop, that's not sustainable. And for the most part, a lot of things that are being chased in terms of the outsized gains, they're not sustainable. A lot of them, right? So I wanted to cover something that, in terms of our normal financial institutions, there's still outsized gains. They're still exponentially better than what currently exists. Keeping your money in a savings account. But they're not astronomical gains where someone who is more conservative would be suspicious. And I think this is important because this is a way to earn passive income in a safe manner. Any investment is not 100% safe, but this is as close as possible. And of course, before I start, I have to say I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is, this is something that I employ in my portfolio in my everyday use, and I want to share this with you guys. I think it's very important to know and to implement if you have the means to do so. Always, always, always invest only what you can afford to lose. And let's get into this. So for those who may know, for those who may not know, there is a difference in interest in terms of how they calculate the interest, right? There's APR and then there's APY. And I wanted to go ahead and kind of highlight that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the current banks. And now I'm in Canada, so we're going to go through some Canadian banks, but it's relatively similar in the US banks as well in terms of the amount of interest that's earned. And then I'm going to highlight some of these, crypto exchanges, one in particular that I use, and then we'll kind of go over, my portfolio when it comes to the percentage that's earned. All right, so I just kind of want to take you through, and then we'll kind of go over. We'll kind of finish it off with what's different between our regular banks and their interest versus a centralized exchange in the crypto space. So let's go ahead and get started here. All right, so first thing, maybe you don't realize what this is, and even for me when I first started, this has never been something that I paid attention to, right? When you think of interest, for the most part, many people think interest is interest, right? Doesn't matter which bank or how they're offering it or whatnot. If someone says it's 4% interest, it's 4% interest, and that's the same across the board, right? But there is a difference, and it's quite a big difference depending on how many times that interest is paid out. So you look here and something called APR versus APY, right? And this is pretty much telling you that not all interest is created equal. All right, so they're quite different. APY is annual percentage yield, all right, and it takes into account compound interest. And APR is annual percentage rate, and it does not take into account compound interest. So, I mean, what does that even mean? We'll just go through the key takeaways and then we'll just kind of break it down and make it simplified, right? And then APR represents the annual rate charged for earning or borrowing money. APY takes into account compounding, but APR does not. The more frequently the interest compounds, the greater the difference between APR and APY. And investment companies generally advertise the APY while lenders tout APR. So I'm not going to get into the lending aspect of it. This is strictly you put your money into a financial tool or a financial vehicle, and at some point in time, whether it's weekly or monthly or however the interest is paid out, you're going to get something in return. Okay, so APR, think of it like a flat rate, right? You start with a certain amount. They know how much that is, obviously, that you're starting out with. They know how many times in a year, interest will be paid out. So if it's monthly, it's 12 times. And then they know the interest rate. And so they're just going to come up with a flat rate that you're going to get paid out, every month. So it doesn't matter, like if you're in month 3, your principal has not increased on top of which you're going to get interest. It'll still be that initial principal that's getting the same amount of interest. And so APY actually takes into account how much accumulates in the account. And then the next time you get paid, you actually get paid on the total amount, not the initial principal amount. So, if you're paid once a year, not that much of a difference between APR and APY. But if you're paid on a weekly basis, that difference starts to add up, especially as you go through over the years. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Again, APR, fixed rate, APY takes into account compound interest, so your payout increases as well because the amount held in the account increases with time. So that's kind of the gist of everything here, and that's very important for any platform that you're on, whether it's the existing legacy accounts that you have now, whatever banks you may be in. And also when you look at any exchange in the crypto world, it's important to recognize, is this APR or is this APY? And kind of flowing from that, I want to get into something called stable coins. Now, the beauty of this is the actual name of it is for anyone that's risk averse, right? It is a stable coin. So there are quite a few of them. Now, when you think of a coin, you may think of Bitcoin, you may think of Ether, DOT, Matic. There's all kinds. There's tons of them. So USDC or Tether or any of these that you see up here, these are stable. So they're supposed to be pegged to something that does not fluctuate, right? That's the whole thing. It's anti-volatility. That's what it's supposed to be. And between the two here, these are the most popular. Tether is the largest one in terms of popularity and volume. But USDC is my choice. And we're going to kind of highlight why as well. But just to go through it here, really, it's a project that uses established banks and auditors while leveraging the ETH-based smart contracts. Don't need to get heavy into that, okay? But just understand that it's scrutinized, it's audited, and there's regulations. There's a certain standard. So not so much regulation, but there's a certain standard set for USDC, all right? And then down here, this is why myself, I use USDC as opposed to USDT. Sometimes USDT is used if certain transactions will only accept it, or certain projects will only accept it. That's different. But USDC is definitely my choice. And this highlights it beautifully, right? It seems to have gained traction as the most used fiat collateralized stablecoin. It's the second largest stablecoin on the market. And like I mentioned before, Tether is the largest. But Tether has unable to provide sufficient evidence that their supply is fully collateralized by an equal amount of underlying U.S. legal tender. So what they're saying really is that anything that's stable is saying that, in a vault somewhere is U.S. dollar that can back what is being given out as a token, like 1-to-1, right? So if you take one USDC or one USDT, which is Tether, then in their vault they will have $1 US, right? So that's the whole thing. But USDT, Some things have kind of come out where that may not be the case, so they lost a lot of trust, and USDC has kind of stepped into that void and is kind of taking over the game in terms of that trust factor and the fact that they actually have US dollars pegged or backed, backing the actual USDC coin. So something to note, that's kind of like the nuance behind USDT versus USDC. Main takeaway, USDC is a stable coin. It's pegged to the US dollar. So you're not going to get, 90% correction or, 100% boom. You're not going to get that volatility. Very, very stable. And so now I want to jump into, what if you have your money in a savings account, right? Yeah, okay. There are so many different instruments out there in which you can try and make some passive income, but still to this day, quite a few people leave their money in the bank and they say, okay, whatever interest I get, that's standard. I'm happy with it. Even if I'm not happy with it, it is what it is and I get it. But I want to really highlight the difference here. All right. So, and again, these are only Canadian financial institutions here. So I'm not highlighting US or anything like that, but they're not that much different. Okay. And I want to go through. So here, when you compare savings accounts, all right, and I'm only going to go through the major ones, none of the smaller entities here. But if you look at HSBC, it says high rate, and this actually kind of makes me chuckle, right? Because their advertising is, this is an immense opportunity for you to gain wealth on the money that you would park here. You got to remember, this is money that can be used for anything, but you just park it here. So high rate savings account is going to give you 0.05%. 0.05%. And that's actually pretty good for legacy markets, for the regular financial institutions. So here, you get $5 your first year return, $5 based on a $10,000 balance. Okay? So think about that. You're getting $5 for $10,000. This is the interest rate that's being, promoted as high interest savings account, right? We're going to go down to the next one here. Scotia Bank. Okay, they've got some special account here. Wow. It's an astounding 1%, 1.1%, of which you get $110, return based on $10,000 balance. Okay. We're going to National Bank, 0.05% again. TD, high interest rate savings accounts, a type of account, a type of Canadian account, which is a tax-free savings account. And you're going to get 0.05%, right? Their TD's non-tax-free savings account, 0.05%. Scotia Bank, 0.05%. Royal Bank, 0.05%. And you look here, we got TD Bank everyday savings account. So now we're not calling this high interest rate savings account. This is just your everyday, 0.01%. $1 first year return based on $10,000 balance. Okay, Scotia Money Master Savings Account, 0.01% as well, and RBC. We just go on and on and on and on and on. All right, and we can kind of dig deep. Is it APR? Is it APY? Absolutely, we can. But at these rates, I mean, it makes no difference. Zero difference. And how much you would accumulate over the years at 0.05, 0.01, ridiculous. Okay, so that I want you guys to keep fresh in your minds. That this is what's offered on a standard basis throughout. Again, I'm highlighting Canadian banks, but not too far off from U.S. banks as well or anywhere else. It's laughable. It's laughable what the interest rates are. So I'm going to kind of go through some of these other platforms here. So we have one that's called Celsius, and so these are not, back alley exchanges. These are high volume, well-established exchanges, lots of trust, lots of security, and they're well-established and well-known, and large amounts of inflow that comes onto these exchanges. Okay, so they tell you right here, stable coins, and actually before I start, I really want you guys to go on these platforms. Again, it does not mean you have to put any money here at all, but get a feel for them, right? Because they're all very similar in terms of what you can earn. You can get credit cards for those in the US mainly. You can borrow, swap. I mean, you don't have to get into all of that, but just get a feel, play around, see what's here, go into the earn section and kind of find out, what their rates are. Now, what's great about Celsius, and as well as the next platform that I talk about is you get weekly payouts. This isn't monthly, weekly. And you can see here that they're APY. So you are getting, your payout is accumulating each week, right? So it's not that fixed rate. It's a rate applied to the amount that's in that particular account. And so as the account grows, the interest grows with it. And on top of that, not obviously for stable coins, but if you're talking about Bitcoin or ETH and you were to actually get some interest on it, you're getting it back in that actual asset. So I'll make a separate video on what that actually means. But so think about if you put in 0.05 Bitcoin and your return is 0.001 Bitcoin, or some nominal amount, but you're getting it in Bitcoin. So as the price of Bitcoin increases, so is the value of the interest that you received. So it's a very interesting concept. But back to stable coins here. So we've got APY. Okay, and what's nice about Celsius is that you don't have to put it in any period of time. A lot of these exchanges will want you to lock it up, right? So they're going to give you 1 month. Think of it like a GIC, right? You'll get X rate if you keep it in for 1 month. You'll get Y rate if you keep it in for 3 months. So a lot of these exchanges will do something similar, and the rates will increase will fluctuate based on how long you lock it up for. But Celsius does not do that. You just deposit your money or deposit your USDC in here, and you start to accumulate your interest. And also, a little wrinkle here on these crypto exchanges is each exchange has their own token, their own currency on that exchange. So Celsius has a CEL token, and you can buy it. You can kind of lock that up. You get more perks for doing that. You can even decide to, no matter what you put in here, so USDC is our reoccurring example in this video, you could lock up your USDC and decide to earn the rewards in CEL, which is the native token on the platform. So sometimes it takes a little time to wrap your head around, but there's very interesting things that happens on these platforms that us as the customers and the users benefit from. Right? Now, locking up any of your tokens is always a benefit for the exchanges. They usually tend to lend these out to other financial institutions and collect, rates on that. But they pass on a portion of the revenues to their customers, to us as the users. So there's all kinds of inner workings that are going on. But to simplify it, you come on Celsius, if you have some USDC or you buy some USDC on here, and that's it. You just let it sit, and you would actually get 8.5%. That's what you would get. So think about that. You would get 0.05%, 0.01% on an everyday account for the other ones. You may get an astounding 1.1% at best for just locking up your money. And then that was Canadian. So all this is in US. Typically, these exchanges will work where it is US. Some of them do allow you to convert to Canadian or some other currency, but for the most part, it works by the US dollar, right? And so 8.5% versus 0.01, 0.05%. So pretty significant difference, okay? And so that's Celsius. I've used Celsius. It's a great platform, works seamlessly. So definitely something that I trust and I have used in the past. But my main exchange is one that's called crypto.com. Okay, and actually before we go to crypto.com, there's one called BlockFi. This BlockFi was actually one of the hottest platforms early on. Had the best rates for everything, not just USDC, for everything. But then things slowly started to change, and you guys can see here that they say tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So those tiers did not exist the first time. And those tiers have something to do with the amount of that token on the exchange, right? So you guys can see here, USDC, if you're anywhere from 0 to 40,000 USDC, you'll get 9%. And then tier 2 is anything over 40%, it actually drops to 8%. So they started to make these tiers, and not only did they make the tiers, but they significantly reduced the amount of interest that was being awarded within the tiers. And again, so this is APY, so that compound interest is working in your favor, all right? So I have used BlockFi before, but I don't anymore just because of the interest that's not really there, okay? Still pretty good for USD, not USDC, not bad. But the main one that I use is called Crypto.com. Now, Crypto.com, what's interesting about them is that their platform is mainly an app. They have they have offshoots of it in terms of if you want to trade, they have an exchange. It's called Crypto.com/exchange. That's desktop. They have an NFT one. Their platform, that's desktop. But their main one, where you earn interest and do some other things on it, but mainly for buying and holding, or buying and selling, just very simple things, is an app. So that can be a wrinkle that either you like it or kind of puts you off. But very nice user experience, very nice interface, very seamless, very clean. Okay, but I like this platform. This is my go-to platform. And so, as I mentioned before on Celsius, every crypto exchange is gonna vary in the interest they provide based on how much obviously you have, but are you locking it up? And if you are, for what time period? And then what they'll also do is they throw in the wrinkle of their native token, which here on Crypto Exchange is CRO. As I mentioned on Celsius, it was CEL. So this is a way for it's a way to incentivize you to buy their native token, the one that runs on their platform, right? So the more you stake of their actual token, the better perks you're going to get. Your interest rates may increase, and a whole bunch of other things. So how long you keep something locked up, if there's any lockup period, and how much you have of their native token and lock that up, will determine the perks that you get, the interest rates that you may have. So when you see, here's a caution. So when you see, these guys will say, well, earn up to 15% or 10% or 12%. You got to understand that is not, I just come on there and that's what I earn. Typically, what they're advertising is the highest amount you would get, provided you do everything possible. So you stake for the longest period of time and you stake the highest amount of. So here, if you look at Crypto.com, you've got flexible, you've got 1 month, and you've got 3 months. So that's the term that you would lock up whatever asset. In our case, it's going to be USDC, right? And then here they have CRO stake. So are you staking 400 CROs or less, 4,000, 40,000 or more, right? And CRO is going to have its own price point. So it could trade at I think right now it's around, 39 cents, 35 cents for 1 CRO, right? So you have to purchase that, stake that, lock it up, and then not only lock CRO up, but then now decide how long you want to lock up USDC, okay? So, just look at the example here. Flexible on Crypto.com means you can lock it up and then remove it. No fees, no issues, nothing. You have access to it, right? You come and go as you please, and you still earn interest. And you're going to earn, so USDC, you're going to earn 8%. Think about, right? And here I have at 40,000 or more. So let's go to 400 or less. And our USDC coin is 6%. So we have full access to it. We only earn maximum 400 CRO, and we're going to get 6%. Okay? If we kept it on flexible, we moved to 4,000, now we have 8%. And if we did 40,000 or more of CRO, in the flexible, they've capped it at 8%. And really, if we stick to 1 CRO staking period, you're really going to see the difference here. So flexible, 6%, 1 month bumps us to 8%, and then 3 months bumps us to 10%. So that is at a minimum, okay, minimum amount of CRO with the longest term, which is 3 months, you're going to get 10%. and this is APY. Okay, and what's great about these is, you can do the calculations for this for the parameters you want to set. So we talked about flexible. We did 10,000. We have 400 or less Crow, and you're going to earn $600 in the year, right? You're going to get 6% because you're getting $12 of rewards weekly. Okay, so if you compare that per year, right? And again, this is flexible. You keep it in there. You can move it around as you please. Now remember, the financial the banking institutions were offering $5 for $10,000 in your first year, right? $1 for $10,000 for the first year. Here we're talking about $600 in flexible. If we went to 1 month, we're looking at $800 for that 10,000 USD coin. Again, for this particular video, I'm talking about, obviously, I acknowledge that it's Canadian dollars for those banks, and this is USD, so there's obviously the exchange issue there, but just based on return, right? And if you locked it up for 3 months for 400 less, you get $1,000 in interest, 10%, and the numbers only increase, okay, as you are in a different tier. So I want you guys to really understand how significant this is. Okay, so 400 or less, 3 months, 400 or less, $10,000 is going to give you 1,000. So 10%, right? Now, when you lock it up, remember, you have no access to it whatsoever. So that's something you got to keep in mind. These so-called high interest rates at these banking institutions, you have access to it, but keeping it in there means almost nothing. You almost get zero, almost as close to zero as you possibly can in terms of your rewards. And I want to kind of go through, how bank accounts are different from crypto exchanges, right? So for all intents and purposes, these crypto exchanges act as, your bank account in the crypto space. There are more, decentralized bank accounts that you control and your keys, your access. You have full control over it, right? These ones are called centralized exchanges. Literally, when you put your assets on there, they own them, right? They have full access to them. So there is that wrinkle as well. But if we're just going to go from banking institution to something similar in the crypto space, it would be these centralized exchanges. All right, and so what they talk about here is interest rates. We've gone over this entire video as how the interest rates vary considerably between the legacy banking institutions and now the crypto exchanges. We're not going to beat that one to death. Insurance is always a big one, right? Some of these banks, they'll offer $250,000 per person as protection. Some are $100,000, and you may not get that on the crypto exchanges, right? If you're doing a hot wallet, definitely not. And a hot wallet just means it's off the exchange, but it's still tied to the internet. You control it, but it can be hacked. Things can happen to it. And you could lose that. You could lose whatever you have in there, and nobody's going to come and kind of save you. Now, here's where things have changed, is that because these exchanges have access to so much of this asset, and they have their own, right? They've purchased it. They have it as collateral. They'll keep it on the side. I know crypto.com was recently hacked, I believe, for ETH, for a little bit of ETH, but none of the users would even know, because anyone who was, crypto.com just kind of gave them whatever they had in their storage back. So no one lost anything in that regard. So pretty sure that was crypto.com who did that. So a lot of these now, as time goes on, this insurance, the protection, it's only going to get better. But definitely keep in mind that there is always a risk when you put any of your assets on this exchange. And for our example here is USDC. So while the coin itself is stable, there's still a risk when you put it on the exchange, right? So and that kind of leads into the next one: theft, hacking, and fraud. Our banking institutions have been around for quite some time. They are much more seasoned when it comes to the fraud and the banking and theft, but it still happens, right? Still happens. And so that was much more prevalent in the early days of crypto, and much better now. The security is better, the monitoring is better. What's great about crypto is because it's on the blockchain and it's public, even though they may not know the specific identity of the person who or group of people who took that or who did the theft, they know the wallet. And so they can freeze assets, they can tell other exchanges don't accept it, so they can follow the actual address, kind of like the paper trail, but it's a digital trail. So they can follow it, and they've restricted and reclaim all of it or some of it. So there are ways for them to kind of offset that. Customer service, listen, I got to say customer service is pretty poor when it comes to our legacy institutions, our banking institutions. So it's been around better. Their systems may be better set up, but they're horrendous from what I've noticed. Anyway, the crypto exchanges, they work through emails for the most part, or chat. That's where it's initiated, and then it kind of flows into emails. Crypto.com used to be very, very quick with chats before, but now that the volume has increased, the usage has increased, the number of users has increased. They're starting to get more into the email base, but still very, very quick for many dealings that I may have had. Available currencies, that's not something we need to get into. There's a whole host of tokens that are out there, as I'm sure most of you know. Some of them are not on these major exchanges. They really like to make sure that there's, one, obviously demand, but two, that there's good, I'm not going to say great fundamentals, but there's a community behind what that token represents and what it is. And there's kind of like a standard that they want to uphold before allowing just any coin to be listed. So they definitely have that. And so that kind of wraps up, legacies, banking, financial institutions, and crypto exchanges. And I just want to kind of personalize this, right? So while there may not be balances here, I do want to show you guys. Like I said, this is mycrypto.com, and I wanted to show exactly what is being earned in terms of percentages, right? And the whole video has been about USDC, but you guys are going to see that there's Ethereum, there's Bitcoin, and Matic, I believe, and Polkadot is in here as well. And I just want you guys to get a feel of the interest rate. Okay, so we talked about the tiers, right? There's flexible in terms of lockup periods, right? There's flexible, there's 1 month, and there's 3 month. Okay, and depending on how you want to play your strategy, you'll decide which tier you kind of want to fall into. So if you're a Bitcoin supporter and an ETH supporter, and you don't think anything's going to happen to them, and you're in it for the long haul, you can stick it in for 3 months and let it be, and get the best percentage, right? APY out there. USD coin, USDC really is there in the flexible, so that you can kind of pull it out as needed and purchase other coins. But again, if all you care about is APY, and you just want to build on top of the USDC coin, you can lock it up for 3 months and earn the best interest you possibly can. So in my particular case here, I have USDC locked up in flexible, not locked up, but in flexible, and you can see 8%, 8% interest. ETH is 4.5%, and Bitcoin is 2%. I have some ETH in 3 month, so I'm getting 6.5%. The wrinkle that I mentioned here was, remember how much CRO, so the crypto.com native token, how much of that you have and how much you've kind of locked that up as well. That's going to dictate the best percentage you possibly can. So I do have CRO locked up, and I do have the second tier, I believe that I am. So definitely not 40,000, whatever the third tier was, over 40,000. No, I do not have that in CRO. So 6.5% there for that 3 term. Bitcoin, 6.5%. So Bitcoin, 6.5%. We're talking about 0.005% and 0.01% in regular currency, fiat money. And I'm looking at 6.5% on Bitcoin, of which I then earn in Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin price continues to appreciate, my interest, the value of it appreciates. So it's a very interesting concept. And I have Polkadot, which is 1 month, and that's 10%. And I have Matic, which is also a great platform and a great project. And I'll receive 12% on that. So this video here is geared to someone who is risk averse. And even though I mentioned Dot and Matic, and once you're in the space, you'll understand that while there is still some risk, they're more on the lower end than anywhere else. I want to focus on USDC. Okay, so straight 8%. You have access to it at any point in time. No fees, no charges for getting out of the flexible tier and having access to it. And you earn 8%. So if you never wanted to touch it and you just left it year after year after year, that's 8%. Okay, so I hope this brought you guys some value. I hope you understand that this is something you need to educate yourself on. Go on these sites and play with it. I mean, I will bet the majority of you out there don't even know your percentage yield in your actual bank accounts. I'll bet you don't know how much it is, and you won't even know if it's APR or APY. So that's the first step, is look at it. See what your rate is and see what you're getting. Kind of track it. What did you get over the last little while? And really see the number of what came into your account based on what you have in it. And then go on these crypto exchanges. You can do a quick search, top 5 crypto exchanges, right? And just go on each of them, play with their services and their products. They're very intuitive. They're getting much better. And just find the interest rates. And then if you're comfortable, you put a very small portion and you let it ride. You just let it ride. And you see how that plays out month after month. 3 months later, 4 months later, 5 months later, you feel comfortable, you put in some more. Or you say, no, it's not for me, and you take it out. I don't know why 8%, 10%, 12% on a stable coin wouldn't be for anybody, but I can advise, right? It's your comfort level. It's what you decide is best for you. Give it a shot. See what works for you. Leave some comments below, and I'll happily go over more examples if need be. So take care, guys. Remember, tomorrow never comes, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.